Count off. Ready? 1, 2,
3, 4,
5,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10.
11, 12.
There's always one.
Thank you for coming today. Electroshock therapy. When you hear that word, what do you think about? For some of us, what we envision is something that's not very nice. We envision somebody strapped down to a table and writhing in pain and, having a really bad day. For others, you're probably thinking to yourself, what in the world is electroshock therapy? Well, the reason I'm kind of interested in it is that several years ago I transported a patient from one hospital to another hospital who was electing to have this therapy done, which was kind of unusual. So I started talking to him about it, and he was actually thinking this was actually going to help his illness that he had at the time. I kind of got intrigued, and over the years I've kind of thought about it a little bit. And I've had some other patients talk about this, and I've talked to a couple other doctors, psychologists who have talked about this. They said, oh yeah, it's still used. So I thought, well, I'd go ahead and research this out and look at it and talk about it a little bit and see if it's used and how well it's used. So they put a different name to it today. We used to know it as electroshock therapy. Now it's electroconvulsive therapy for a very specific reason. So what I want to talk about today is that we'll look at the history of it, where it started, how it works, and then we'll look at how it's used today. And then we're going to look at some of the kind of the fallacies that are out there about it, how people kind of view electroconvulsive therapy. So what I'll use for electroconvulsive therapy is I'll use ECT. So when I say ECT, that's electroconvulsive therapy. So let's look a little bit at the history. ECT was started in the 1930s, and it really gained a lot in popularity through the 1940s and 1950s, and was really widely used. There was a lot of people that went through this therapy, and that's a lot of where it got its bad name. So there's a lot of bad things that happened to it. According to a report named Electroconvulsive Therapy by the National Institute of Health Consensus Development Conference Statement 1985, one of the things that was bad about it is that the doses were pretty high. Now this is electricity, and what they did is they put electrodes on your head and they passed electricity through your brain. The doses were pretty high and they lasted a long time, as in like minutes. So imagine electricity being passed through your brain at very high doses and for minutes at a time. Not very pleasant. Not a whole lot of fun to go through. Okay? Because of that, the problem was that it was ineffective. It didn't work. And often the side effects that they got were actually pretty harmful. People kind of changed after the whole therapy was done. So that was part of where it got its bad name, is that it was so ineffective in what it did. Some of the side effects, well, they had memory loss, as in permanent memory loss, but they also had some other issues. One of the other is that brain damage. A lot of people actually had their personalities changed. One of the things that I can remember is hearing about it equated to being a lobotomy, or basically becoming catatonic, because of what was going on with this. So it wasn't very effective when it was starting out to be used. So that's a lot of where ECT got its bad name. And I can remember as a child hearing about this and kind of laughing about somebody's getting this therapy. Well, it doesn't work. So, that's a little bit about the history, but is it still used today? And if it is, how is it used? It is used today. It's not used quite as much, okay? According to the Mayo Clinic, currently ECT is a process where small amounts of electricity are passed to the brain. Now what we've done rather is big amounts of electricity, we've gone down to small amounts of electricity, okay? And it's not 4 minutes at a time, it's a very, very, very short period of time. Basically, what that small dose is supposed to do is it's supposed to initiate a seizure. Now when we hear seizure, what do we think? Bad stuff, right? Somebody flopping on the ground, not doing well. This isn't that type of seizure. This is like a small brain seizure that actually does something specifically to the brain, okay? Now, the other part to go in there is that when you hear a seizure, you think of something not very pleasant and not something you want to really be doing while you're awake. So this is done while you're under anesthesia. So you're not actually awake while this is happening. You're under anesthesia while it's going on. So what is it used for? According to another report, electroconvulsive therapy from the National Institutes of Health, ECT is used for severe depression, and it's actually very effective for it. It's very effective in treating severe depression. The other things they can use it for is mania, catatonia, and agitation and aggression with dementia patients. So this isn't something that if you're not feeling well today, hey, let's go get ECT. It's not something they're going to do. This is one of those things that, it's kind of like a last-ditch effort. Everything else has failed, and we're still dealing with this severe depression. So it's something that's going to be done as a last-ditch effort to make, to help this patient, okay? The treatments there's 6 to 12 treatments over 3 to 4 weeks, okay? So there's a course of those. A lot of times what happens is that there's improvement after only 6 treatments, but to get the full effect of the treatments, they have to go the whole course. So they have to go over 6 to 12 patients or treatments to get the full course of it. Now remember when I talked about a seizure, that's just not something we like to talk about. What the seizure does is somehow, and I'm not sure how, but the reports all say that the seizure actually changes the brain chemically. And that's what causes the depression. So the seizure that's initiated by the therapy actually changes the chemical makeup of the brain a tad bit to help the patient, okay? So with that in mind, is ECT just a barbaric thing? I mean, we're electrocuting people. And is it really effective? Does it actually really work? Okay, so that's a couple of things I want to look at real quick. A New Zealand Ministry of Health report, Electroconvulsive Therapy Annual Statistics, looks at how it was used over a period of time from July 2003 to June 2005. Okay, so it looks at that time period. Basically what it says is that 70 to 80% of the people who had this therapy responded well to it and actually were actually helped with it. And that for those people, that 70 to 80%, that was the most effective treatment they got for their short-term treatment they received. Most of those people, they're able to go back to work and lead productive lives. With that, I think you can make the assumption that beforehand, they weren't able to work and they weren't leading a productive life. So for New Zealand, they've come out and said, yes, this works. It is a very effective treatment. Well, that's in New Zealand. Well, a Texas State Department of Health report, Electroconvulsive Therapy Annual Report, they had their report of the people that they put into their report, and I think it was over 5 years, they said 57% of the people who were given this treatment at the start of it suffered severe to extreme symptoms at the start. After the treatment, less than 4% of those people had the same symptoms. They were better. So yeah, it works. Okay. Now, is this something we're going to use for somebody who just, I don't feel well today, kind of a winter depression type of thing? This is severe depression. Okay. This is somebody who is basically not able to do anything. They're not able to get out of bed. So this is where we're really going to use that. So no, it's not used very often. And how many of you have heard about electrotherapy or electroconvulsive therapy being used today? Probably not very many because it's not used very often. Okay, it's not used a whole lot. So, in conclusion, electroconvulsive therapy is a tool we can use. It is effective. It works well. Okay. Remember, we use small doses of electricity to initiate that seizure that helps the patient. It changes the makeup of the brain and actually helps the patient with that depression. We know because of those reports from New Zealand and Texas that it's still being used and it's still effective. Okay. So rather than visualizing a patient strapped to a table having large doses of electricity basically passed through their brain, I want you to change your thought of it. Visualize a patient where they're able to tolerate the treatment with medication, and as they go and opt for this treatment, they actually ask for it. They have hope from relief of a lot of bad symptoms that are actually making their life very, very miserable. Thank you.